Grid tonight. Colton Herta is joining the Cadillac F1 program and leaving IndyCar behind to pursue his childhood dream. Is the major risk worth the reward? I can't even talk tonight. Will Power parted ways with Team Penske and he's going to Andretti Global. What does he have left to prove at a new team? NASCAR driver Austin Cindric is going to race in supercars in late November. Can he take the fight to the series regulars on the streets of Adelaide? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me tonight, Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and welcome back, Jackson Lambros from Jalopnik. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. We have a lot to talk about tonight. You know, IndyCar silly season, as we've joked behind say, it's really a silly day in IndyCar, or as someone else said on social media, and day one of the 2025 IndyCar draft has now concluded. Come back for more tomorrow. So we have a lot to talk about, Josh. So let's take it away with our top story this evening.
We really do. It's all exploded today, hasn't it, as well? And for better or for worse, it's given us all something to talk about. Thank you very much, IndyCar, for doing this on our show day. It gives us a big running order. Let's get thrown into it then. So with rumours swirling in the last couple of weeks that we finally have got the news that Colton Herta will indeed leave the Entity IndyCar Series after signing with Cadillac F1 as a test driver. For the last several years, Herta's name has been in the F1 rumour mill, but it just hasn't worked out, especially with the super license points drama preventing him from getting there. Now, the American driver, Herta, will have a chance after he can now finally chase after his long-time dream of making it to the pinnacle of motorsport. Now, with the new American F1 team set to debut in 2026, with Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas behind the wheel of the Cadillac F1 car, this is the last time that Herta raced in Europe was an entire decade ago in the junior categories, where he won 4 races, scored 6 podiums and 5 poles in the Euro Formula Open Championship during a 2-year run. He also made 6 starts in British Formula 3 and finished on the podium 3 times and won a race at Brands Hatch before returning to America in 2017 to get on the road to Indy. Now, Herta will now get on the road to F1 and try to get up to speed on the European racing scene at 25 years old. During his 7 full seasons of IndyCar racing, Herta made 116 starts, won 9 races, 16 poles, 40 top 5 finishes, and 64 top 10s. He's also gotten some of past F1 testing opportunities with McLaren and earned 2 IMSA class victories in the Rolex 24 at Daytona and an overall win in the 12 Hours of Sebring. Herta said his dream has always been to race in F1 and plans on giving everything he can to help build a competitive team. The photo courtesy of Cadillac F1. Well, Jackson, Kirby and Matt are with me to talk about this, and we've already been debating it behind the scenes quite a lot. Now, I stand on one side of the fence, but I'm the presenter, not the pundit. So, Jackson, throwing to you first on this as well, after, a few threats behind the bike shed. Are you excited about the huge opportunity for Colton Herta ahead to become the next American F1 driver? And does his arrival put an immediate pressure on Perez and Bottas to perform in year 1? Keep it PG.
Okay. One 4-letter. How the hell can you not be? It's Colton Herta. We've been waiting for this since he started in IndyCar in 2018 on a rookie year and immediately came out swinging. We knew this kid was Formula 1 material, and whether it was the Brad Pitt jokes, the super license jokes, the Herta-isms, the strategy calls from Andretti Global, things have not gone his way. And I think this is the perfect time, if any, for him to go and get himself a new view, a new lease on life, and a new chapter in his driving career. And I genuinely think you're not a racing fan if you're not excited for the prospect of seeing this kid go and give Formula 1 a run for its money. I think you look at Bottas and Perez, I think there's job security there. They've got over a decade of experience under their belts. They're bringing sponsorship money. So I think, Kobe, we look at this. It's incredibly exciting for Colton Herta, but the pressure is not yet close to being on Perez and Bottas. It's going to be on Colton.
Yeah, I think that's extremely fair to say, Jackson. The pressure is definitely going to be on Colton. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more what he's going to be doing in the 2026 season to go alongside his testing duties with Cadillac F1. And for anyone who watched the Great Encore show on Monday evening, just want to clarify, if we came across a certain way about Colton when we were like initially reacting to this upcoming announcement today, we weren't, like trying to speak negatively about Colton, going to the Formula One world. But we were mostly saying it, like out of concern for him because this is, quite a major risk that he's doing, leaving behind the IndyCar series, a place where he's very comfortable to go into the unknown, into an uncomfortable environment of Formula One, because everyone knows on the European racing scene is way more cutthroat than it is over here in America. Like over there, it can chew you up and spit you out in an instant, and you don't really get, as much time to, show what you can do over there compared to over here. And it can either go two ways. It can either go extremely well for Colton Herta, or it can go extremely bad and just not end up working out. But nonetheless, I think it's a huge opportunity for him. Obviously, for ever since he come into IndyCar, a lot of people saying that this kid could be the next American Formula One driver. And early on in his IndyCar career, it looked like that the hype was justified, because for goodness sake, in his third career start, he won his first IndyCar race at 18 years old, and he, I believe, is the youngest winner in IndyCar history. So that was really impressive. So the hype was real. And then at the end of that same season, he ended up winning the season finale at Laguna Seca. And then, Herta Mania just took off, and people were like, wow, this kid needs to get an F1 opportunity someday. I know that Michael Andretti tried to get that to happen, but, so they had a super license situation. Then they, kept blocking Andretti from trying to get into F1. So it was just so hard for Colton to try to get into F1. But now, it seems like this could be his one and only opportunity to make it happen. So Colton's, decided, that he's going to try to live out his dream, because before, wanted to be an IndyCar driver, he wanted to be a Formula One driver. And I know he's a little bit older now, at age 25. I know that's kind of old, and, for drivers who are trying to get into F1. But if this is your only opportunity, and this is something you've dreamed of since you were a child, I feel like, that Colton really wanted to, try to make this happen, because otherwise he would, just be stuck in IndyCar, and, this opportunity passed him by, then he might regret it later on. So I guess he felt like he might as well, no time like the present, to go over there, make the jump and see what can happen. And in regards to Perez and Bottas, yeah, I think at some point, during the year, there might be pressure on them to perform, especially if Colton Herta, is lighting it up in Formula 2, which we'll talk about in a little while. And yeah, but Perez, Bottas, I know they're on multi-year deals right now, but as we know in the world of motorsports, that can change very quickly, especially, if Perez is outperforming Bottas by a quite a margin, or vice versa, and then Colton's tearing it up, then there's going to be a lot of pressure on those guys. But I do wonder, if Perez and Bottas do extremely well in year one with his Cadillac F1 car, and Colton Herta also does well in Formula 2, then some tough decisions will have to be made. But I do find it hard that, that Cadillac would bring in two experienced veterans like Perez and Bottas, just for 1 year. Yeah, so I wonder, like, what is the long-term plan for Colton Herta? If he does well in F2 in 2026, does he replace one of them in 2027? Do they try to loan him out to another team in F1? I think there's certainly, a lot of things that Cadillac's going to have to figure out here when it comes to Colton Herta's development on the road to F1.
Yeah, lots of unanswered questions at the moment, Kobe, that will be answered over the next, 18 to 24 months. I think this is very exciting. It's great for the American fan of IndyCar to see, Colton, as you said, we were all excited about this happening for quite a while in terms of his progression. And it seems like it's been talked about for about 4 or 5 years in various stages, with the Toro Rosso thing a few years ago when he could have come in, and then that didn't happen for the super license stuff. And we've talked about this a lot on all of our shows over the last little while, kind of following this story along. And we talked about Cadillac signing the drivers on this show last week with Bottas and Perez. I think Herta was kind of Herta would have been in the frame had Perez not come in with a bit more sponsorship behind him, perhaps. For a proper race drive at it. But to have him as part of the team is going to be great. And then, as you say, what he does in F2 world, and in obviously there's going to be plenty of free practice one runs for him, I guess, throughout the season. But again, it will all depend if the car is decent. If the car is a dog, and they're sticking Colton in, and he looks like he's underperforming because the cars are slow, then we're going to be back in a Scott Speed situation like we were all the way back in 2007.
Yeah, and already you guys are going to jump on me if I say anything negative about Colton Herta. Look, my opinion on this is it does not historically work in the modern era of Formula One for an IndyCar driver to come over to Formula One. It didn't work out for D'Amata. It didn't work out for Scott Speed. Montoya, it worked to start with, then didn't work later. And the same sort of went for Jacques Villeneuve. I think Villeneuve was the last successful one, I'd argue, coming into it. Montoya, as Matt, me and you spoke about just before we came on air, he had the pace to begin with, but he never fully had the car underneath him. So, I wish him the best. But if he was coming into a McLaren, I'd say Herta's going to be a race winner. But he's going into Cadillac, a team which is brand new. No, this is not going to work out the way we all think it is. And we've got to be realistic about that. But I'll wait to throw Jackson back onto the bus in a minute about this because we're going to complete on with it. Now, on the Off Track with Hinch and Rossi podcast, Cadillac F1 CEO Dan Towers spoke about the decision to move Herta from his IndyCar program to the new F1 program. Now, Towers has praised Herta's ability to process new information and believes that he has what it takes to make it in F1. Now, however, Towers isn't guaranteeing an F1 seat for Herta because he'll have to earn it. Although this wasn't mentioned in the press release, Towers revealed that Herta would race in Formula 2 next year, but didn't confirm which team he would drive for. And a lot of people are wondering why Herta would leave IndyCar and effectively take a step down to a feeder series like F2 when he was competing at the highest level of open wheel racing in North America. Now, with an F2 switch on the cards to go alongside his testing duties with Cadillac F1, Herta will get to learn the F1 tracks, how the Pirelli tyres behave and compared to the Firestones from IndyCar, and how the F1 world works in general. Now, on the podcast, Herta said this isn't goodbye forever from IndyCar, but mostly a goodbye for now because he sees himself coming back to the series in the future. Interesting enough, there is no F2 races during the month of May in 2026. Now, theoretically, that could open the door for Herta to run full-time in F2, fulfilling his testing requirements with Cadillac F1, and maybe enter next year's Indianapolis 500. Now, Herta addressed this with Hinch and Rossi, saying that he was unaware that May 2026 was free to potentially make a one-off return to IndyCar. He would be open to run the Indy 500 next year, but will not at the expense of it being a distraction to his 2026 racing program in Europe. He also said that he believed this might be his one last shot to make it to F1, so that's why he's willing to take such a big risk to go the other way. Matt, start with you on this one. How confident are you in Herta's abilities to compete against and alongside the best drivers in F2? And is it realistic to think that he could still be next year's Indy 500 with an extra car from Andretti Global? That, I think, is very possible.
That, I think, is possible. And it kind of hadn't crossed my mind, but because, of course, we've got the, as we talked about at the time, stupid switcheroo in the F1 calendar where the Canadian Grand Prix and Monaco have swapped around. So there would be a Monaco race on Indy 500 weekend, of course, but that now is not the case because Formula One will be in Montreal. I mean, against the F2, the best guys in F2, it's what's the date today? The 3rd of September. We don't know who the best guys in F2 are going to be yet because there's going to be a lot of people moving teams coming up from F3 and from other places. I think F2 is the kind of most fluid in terms of driver rosters of any championship probably in the whole of the world on a year-to-year basis. And as we saw last year, from about this time of the year onwards, during the season as well, because we had a load of F3 guys jump up into the last few rounds of F2. Largely, think of people like Christian Mansell, who did very well in F2, and now his career's on hold. So, very, very fluid indeed. And maybe Colton Herta might be one of them. Maybe we'll see him in an F2 car between now and the end of the year, because, of course, as we know from the weekend, IndyCar is all done and dusted for their season. So, I think if you stand back and look at what Colton has achieved so far in his IndyCar career and the speed he's shown at times when he's been on it and the car has been good, if he goes to F2 and he gets up to speed with the car, and of course some of the tracks he will know and some of them he won't, I think he'll go fairly well. And if he is in with a decent team, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, on this show, about F2 with the new car and teams pick it up well and some don't. If he can get into a good team that knows the car and have got it running well, then he could be a championship contender quite easily next season in F2 if he gets with the right team.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Matt. You need to get with the right team, the right car, in the right year, because it can be quite a lottery. In Formula 2, for so many years, and during the several years of this F2 era, the car that you want to be in, probably a Prima. But, since we switched to this new car, especially, with the new engine, which seems to, cut in and out sometimes, depending on the race weekend, Prima's not that, not that one team anymore that you really want to be in. I mean, they could have a good year, but I guess it just depends now, since it's really just such a lottery. And like we mentioned on Monday night's Encore show, we were talking about how the success of drivers like a Christian Lundgaard, Marcus Armstrong, those guys, Callum Ilott, who've come over from Formula 2 to race in IndyCar, they've been able to, adapt extremely well to the IndyCar. And I wonder if it works the other way around with Colton Herta, adapting from the IndyCar to the Formula 2 car. And for his sake, I hope Cadillac's able to get him in the right position with that right team for him to go out there and be a contender for the championship, or contender for race wins, and to at least finish in the top 10 or maybe the top 5 of the standings. Because Colton Herta, unlike his American counterparts, Logan Sargent and Jack Crawford, who's currently in Formula 2 and doing extremely well for himself over there, I think Colton Herta is going to have an enormous amount of scrutiny that he's going to carry, considering the fact that he is a much bigger name, in American motorsports. No disrespect to Logan Sargent or Jack Crawford, but more of us over here, we're more likely to know who Colton Herta is compared to those guys, Sargent and Crawford. And like I say, no disrespect to them, but and also Colton Herta, his name has been in the F1 rumor mill for several years now, and how people keep saying that this kid, he can do it if he's given a chance and all of that. So some of the mistakes that we saw from Colton Herta, throughout his IndyCar career, he's not going to be able to get away with that, in Formula 2 in the F1 world. Just like a few times in IndyCar, when he took himself out of contention because he overshot the corner and got into the barrier, stuff like that. If he does that in Formula 1 world, they're going to eat him alive for making those mistakes. It just shows the enormous amount of pressure that he's going to be under. I'm confident in Colton Herta's abilities, to go out there and compete with the drivers in F2, but I'm worried, like we talked about the big risk that he's taken. I'm worried if it goes the other way and he struggles, mightily, let's say finishing outside the top 10 in points, and or turn into a situation like we've seen, with the former Super Formula champion Ritoma Miyata. I remember when he was coming out of Super Formula, people are saying that this guy, from Japan, that he is really, really good. And then he's gone to Formula 2, and he's honestly, instead of looking special in Super Formula, he looks, honestly average in an F2 car. So I wonder if that could potentially, be one of the downfalls of Colton Herta, going over there to Formula 2, where instead of, looking like this guy, like, ooh, we're so excited to, what he can do in this series, just looking average over there. And then if he doesn't perform, then obviously Cadillac's not going to put him in the F1 car, because I think that the deal that Dan Towers has with him right now, is extremely fair. Be like, Colton, we're not guaranteeing you a Formula 1 seat. We want to put you in F2, get you used to how the Pirelli tires work, how we operate in Formula 1. And if you do extremely well, you're going to earn this spot in Cadillac, because, nothing's going to be given in this situation. But although I am concerned about how Colton Herta will do overall in this environment, I wish him nothing but the best, because I really like to see someone, go after their childhood dreams, regardless of who it is. And in regards to the Indy 500 question, I think it would be great if Andretti, able to bring out an extra car for Colton. He said, that that he'd be open to this opportunity, but we know how they usually, behave in the F1 world when it comes to this. They usually like their drivers to focus solely on Formula 1 and nothing else. I know in recent years we've seen, Zach Brown been one of the people to be, open to letting them do things outside of F1 if it doesn't interfere with their day job, so to speak. And it's going to be interesting to see if Dan Towers is going to be more of like a Zach Brown type Formula 1 team owner, where he's like, yeah, Colton, if you do this, if you're doing well to start the season in F2 and, you're doing well for us at the F1 test program, then we're going to let you run Indy. Yeah, so I would love to see Colton Herta, make a one-off at Indy. I think that would be, a really big story, especially if he goes out and wins the 500 next year and then returns to the F2 and F1 paddock, as the big man on campus for winning the most prestigious race in the world. But then again, you got the 3 Andretti cars, full-time cars. And then I wonder if they'd be willing to fill their fifth car, assuming Marco Andretti is going to return. And I don't really know if Andretti would want to take on a fifth entry, but if Andretti is not going to run 8,500, I can't imagine why he wouldn't. But yeah, that would be an extra undertaking for Andretti to add a fifth car for the Indy 500. I wonder if that would be something they'd be willing to do.
There's a lot of emotions here, boys, and a lot of thoughts, and we're just going to let them out one by one. It might be a little bit jumbled, but here we go. Let's start with the Indy 500, okay? I think you look at how Colton needs to approach this, it's entirely possible. I think Taurus could absolutely make that possible for Colton Herta. But you look at the level of commitment needed for Formula One to make that a possibility. I think it makes sense for Colton to go all chips in on F2. And if we do see him at a race, it's going to be maybe a different one-off, but nothing that requires a full month of commitment. We've seen how much it sucked the life out of, Kyle Larson for just to go do the 500 alone. And I think the time and effort needed to make Formula 2 work for Herta is not going to make the 500 possible or make the 500 beneficial. And I think Colton is going to want to go all chips in. I get it. It's hard for people to get on the hype train when Herta is an ancient 25 years old. I'm 23. Maybe I should start putting my retirement papers together. But you look at where Alex Palou is at. I mean, he's an ancient 28 years old, and we would not be having this conversation if it was him going to the seat. By the way, we want to talk about European results in F1. Let's talk about Alex Palou, who got mopped in F3 by Santino Ferrucci. You can let me know how both of those guys ended up when they made it over to IndyCar. I think Kobe makes a phenomenal point in that we've seen so many guys move over from F2 into IndyCar. There's a good mix and match there. It's a very hard reasoning for me to see why Colton Herta would struggle in this kind of machinery. And we want to talk about adaptability. Colton Herta, 3 different wins, 2 at Le Mans, 1 in Sebring for sports cars, all 3 of them in different machinery, 1 in GTE with BMW, an LMP2 run with United, and an Acura GTP. You can let me know how adaptable of a driver he is, Josh, but I think it all comes down to this dude's going to be at mercy of the Mecachrome lottery. We've seen that with Moto, and we can go things out, but it just comes down to this. We have been waiting over half a decade for this. The day we get this news, you were talking yesterday about how badly you wanted to see this kid. Day one, oh yeah, he's going to suck. What do you want? What do you want? Other than Alex Palou in the seat, what do you want?
I'll say this right now. I want him in a McLaren. I want him in a top car. I want him.
Okay.
I want him in a Red Bull. I don't want him in a Cadillac. If he's coming to Formula One, you put him in a high-tier car. You do what Montoya and Villeneuve did. You don't do what Bourdais and D'Amata did and go into a team which is so underfunded, going to be so slow in its early years, and will not get off the ground. Cadillac to me is screaming Toyota vibes again from 2002, again and again, and they're not learning from the mistakes. So I've been around Formula One now for 2 decades, and Matt, you're probably going to be agreeing with me on this as well. I've seen this all before. Yeah, well, I've seen it all before.
Well, I know what you're saying about. Sorry, Jackson. Before you come back in, I know what you're saying about putting him in a top team. There's the biggest rule change we've seen in a long, long time coming. They need experienced heads. They've got 2 of them in Bottas and Perez. They're not going to stick a rookie in like Villeneuve coming into a waltzing Williams or to that effect. It's not going to be the same as Cristiano D'Amata, who struggled. It's not going to be the same as Sebastian Bourdais, who was in a B team car at Toro Rosso in the mid 2000s. It's not going to be the same as that, but we need to wait and see what he does in F2.
And you know what, Matt? I think maybe as much super license smoke we've seen from Herta and the U.S. side of things, maybe Herta does need a little bit of time to get ready, especially with how drastic of a change this is going to be. Yes, the Indy cars have gotten more advanced with hybrid systems, push to start different things, but these F1 cars are still space age. You need a whole space shuttle sized manual to learn how to just start the damn thing. So I get it. I don't think we're going to see, we're obviously not going to see a Braun GP level of run with $500 million put into this thing. I would love to see that kind of run, but you look at the level of aggression that Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou had. I will yell the praises of IndyCar all day, but when you get that opportunity to go do F1, to be one of the 20 guys, you answer that call. I know Brendan Hartley had that opportunity, 2017, coming from Toyota. Either do Ganassi have run in the front with Chip or fight for points with Toro Rosso. I think if you asked him right now, there wouldn't be a damn regret about what he did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's look at some tweets coming through. Adam says, I'm looking forward to seeing how Colton Herta does as a Cadillac F1 test driver, another American across the pond. That's always good. I can't wait to see how Colton does against the F2 current drivers in 2026. That's going to be changing because there'll be more F3 next year with them all getting sort of shuffled around into Super Formula.
Yeah.
Can he win an F2? That's the big question, isn't it, Matt? Can he win an F2? I mean, you cover the series. Can he do it? There's a lot of people there at the moment that are dominating.
As I said before, he's got to end up and Jackson mentioned the Mechachrome lottery. That is part of it, and it goes for him and other people. But there's a bunch of tracks on the calendar that he doesn't know. He's going to have plenty of sim time at Cadillac Sim, which is, I'm guessing, at Silverstone, to learn all these circuits. But he's got to line himself up with a Prema if they're going to be good, with a Rodin if they're going to be good, with a Van Amersfoort if they're going to be good. We just don't. Going into an F2 season, you just do not know what team is going to be the top team. ART
which team
are
is going to have, which team are going to have the links with Cadillac and Andretti as well, because you've got ART, which is linked. Well, it was linked with McLaren. Now they've sort of shoved around to be more Ferrari. Yeah, they've sort of been all the way around. Prema's now linked. Was with the Ferrari Driver Academy, but now has also switched to McLaren and Williams. So he's just got to link up with the teams and see who needs the money as well. Prema were linked with Mercedes last year as well, and they put Andrea Antonelli on the grid this year. Now look at Antonelli. He makes his first mistake in Formula One, and everyone's crucifying him after what happened. And I still don't. I didn't think it was his fault. I didn't think it was his fault.
World champion crucified him.
Yeah. Jacques Villeneuve. Yeah. But I said this. A lot of people in the commentary box that day said, no, that was Kimi's fault. It wasn't Kimi's fault. Why was Leclerc on the high line? That's the wrong call. Where was Kimi supposed to go? To banking. Clearly, this is what really annoyed me about people who watch motorsport and don't know how bankings work. Antonelli had nowhere to go. Can't go lower. Can't go higher. Leclerc's there. It was inevitable. That's oval racing. Watch IndyCar. Watch NASCAR. Learn it, please. We only have 2 ovals on the entire calendar. If everything goes south for Colton, where would that leave him in IndyCar in the future? It probably would go back straight to Andretti, wouldn't it, Jackson? That would probably be the logical.
It's either that, or maybe he comes back separating, being like a separate driver from TMG, and we'll have to see. But I think if you're a rookie or if you're a newer team like Prema or Junco still looking for a driver, and you've got a free agency come 2028, 2029, and you see, a guy who's getting up there, around 30 years old at that point, you're still dumb to not pick him over a rookie. He's got win out of the box mentality, and now he's got Formula One levels of experience. You would be dumb to not pick him or have him at the top of your candidate list, I think. But we're going to wait and see. And I think this is going to be, Matt, the ultimate litmus test of how strong that bond is going to be between Towers and Colton.
And if that doesn't happen, McLaren hypercar program.
Yes.
Andretti, Zach
Very
Brown.
close with Zach Brown.
They're like this, aren't they?
Yeah.
So,
which is why I'm surprised that McLaren haven't been invested more with the Cadillac program. Go on, Kobe.
Alex Pillow, next question. They do not want another whatever the hell that is. Sorry.
The only thing I was just gonna add to what Denver said in the chat, I think it honestly depends on what happens between the relationship in the next few years between Taurus and Colton Herta. We know at some point that he will more than likely come back to IndyCar. He said that he wants to come back to IndyCar, just a matter, or it's going to be 3 years down the road, 5 years more, depending on, how good the Cadillac F1 car is, how good he's or how well he's performing, and the car is going to depend on when he's, able to come back to IndyCar. If he ends up leaving the Cadillac F1 program and they end, on peaceful terms, then maybe, he can slide right back into that number 26 Gamebred Honda at Andretti, and that would be perfect. Or, if things don't necessarily go well, maybe he could be picked up by a Chip Ganassi Racing, Team Penske, or even Arrow McLaren. If assuming those teams are more than likely still going to be around, at the end of the decade, heading into the next. But who knows what's going to happen in IndyCar? The running order over there might shake up in the next few years or so. You might see new teams, rise to the top, or there might be a team that hasn't even been formed yet who's at the top of IndyCar in the next few years. Or it's just a whole lot of things that we do not know yet, in the future of IndyCar.
And by the time he comes back, if and when he does come back, they'll have a new car as well.
Yes.
Doubtful.
Probably would be better. Yeah, it's an IndyCar. They keep saying a new car. It's like dangling a carrot in front of a 2-year-old and saying, "Come on, eat this." No, I want sweets. Eat this. Come on, it's healthy for you. Right, moving on and staying with IndyCar because a lot has happened today, as we said. Moving adjacent to Colton Herta leaving, who's going to take his seat? Well, one of the most successful partnerships in the NTT IndyCar Series has officially come to an end, with Team Penske and Will Power parting ways after the 2025 season. Now, throughout the year, the elephant in the room was Power's contract status and whether or not he'd finish his IndyCar career with Penske. Now, as the season went on, he faced a lot of questions about this topic as rumours swirled about David Malukas potentially replacing him in the number 12 Verizon Chevrolet next year. Now, towards the end of the season, Power seemed to talk about his time at Penske in the past tense. And after winning at Portland, he was very reflective of his time there. Once we got to the season finale, though, at Nashville, the writing appeared to be on the wall, with this leaning in one particular way. Now, during his 17-year tenure at Team Penske, he won 42 of his 45 career IndyCar races with the captain, including 2 championships and the 2018 Indianapolis 500. Power also won the pole 71 times and became the greatest qualifier in IndyCar history. In a statement, Roger Penske said that after a sitting down with Power to discuss their future together, he alleged that it was Power who felt it was time for him to make a change. Meanwhile, Power said it was the honor of his life to drive for the organization. He'll always be grateful for his time with the team, but felt like a change was the right move at this time of his career. Team Penske plans to announce plans for the future the number 12 team at a later date. Power revealed on the Hinch and Rossi podcast that he asked Penske for a 3-year contract and he wasn't given that. He also revealed frustrations with the process this year, with so much uncertainty surrounding his future, and how he made his decision after winning at Portland that it was time to move on from Team Penske. According to Jenna Fry from the Associated Press, Penske refused to negotiate with Power until he won a race. Now, Power said Penske offered him something, but it was ultimately his decision to take his talents elsewhere. Photo taken by Chris Owens from Penske Entertainment. Well, that was the cat amongst the pigeons. That, I think, is the PR stunt, personally. Considering that he was the best Team Penske driver in 2025, was it a mistake for them to part ways with Will Power? And do you agree with this whole situation and how it was handled?
Of course, Ben comes in just at the right time for me to begin this conversation. Let's start with this. When I predicted this move at that this was something that was going to happen start of 2024, this was not the 2-year strand I was not expecting Will Power to have, and I am happily gonna wear that. And I do approach this decision from Penske with a very big amount of confusion. Just as you mentioned, he's the consistency behind this team and what's been such a troublesome handful of years, whether it's been bad luck, obviously the drama, not just with this year, but last year at St. Pete. He's been the one solid kind of glue guy, I think is how I would describe his role at Team Penske as of late. But I think you got to understand where Penske's coming from, because the last thing they want is to burn money on a guy that could potentially have another 2023-esque season. And he has been white hot the past 2 years, no doubt. But you look at the way he's only getting older. I think only a 1 or 2 year at the very most would make the most sense. And for Will Power to kind of push for 3, I think that's for sure where the issue has come in. We'll talk more about the fate of Will Power after this, but I'll say it was a mutual level of dumbness from both parties. Let's say that, Kobe.
Yeah, Jackson, I think that's fair to say that. Given, what Will Power is, not just meant to the IndyCar Series, what he's meant to Team Penske, it was really disappointing for him, not to get a proper send-off here. I felt like, he at least deserved, for the world to know ahead of time, that, hey, he's not coming back to Team Penske and whatsoever. And, he's been a staple, of the Verizon car for a long time. In motorsports these days, it's very rare to see one driver and one sponsor, stick together for so many years, kind of like when I was growing up back in the day, watching NASCAR, like you think Jeff Gordon, and DuPont, you think Jimmy Johnson and Lowe's, Tony Stewart, Home Depot, and then later Tony Stewart and Office Depot, or Denny Hamlin and FedEx, brands that, became synonymous together. And Will Power and Verizon, they went together like peanut butter and jelly. It was just a partnership that just seemed right. And what he was able to accomplish in nearly, 20 years together, the right number 17 there. So a few years short of 20, but it's this incredible run that they went on. Penske, Verizon Power, they have a lot to be proud of, and certainly looking forward to seeing what's next. And Will Power, I think he's going to, be fired up in 2026, that he's going to want to go out there and prove the captain that, you made the wrong decision to go with the younger guy. You should have stuck, with the old dog who was still getting the job done. And it was very interesting, listening to the Off the Track podcast with James Hinchcliffe and Alexander Rossi. Will Power come on at the very end of that, and link to that podcast in our video description below. And if you have time later after you're watching our show, highly encourage every viewer out there, go and watch the interview. It was one of the most compelling, IndyCar interviews I have ever seen in my lifetime, with Dan Towers, Colton Herta, and then Will Power there at the end. And when Power was asked, like, what do you want to prove next year? And he said he wants to prove that, despite at his, age of being in his mid-40s, that, you can still be competitive, you can still win races, and you can still win championships. And just because you're getting up there in age, that don't mean, you should basically kick him to the curb. So I think Will Power is going to be extremely motivated in 2026. And Adam says here in the chat that you think Will Power will win for Andretti Global in 2026, and if next year isn't the year that he falls off, I certainly think that is possible. We could see Will Power winning for Andretti Global next year. And he might be telling Roger, show me some respect. If you remember that audio after he won his only Indy 500. And before I throw it over, you're going to catch up on a few comments here in the chat. No, Ben Norris said, what's up, team? Hope the discussion's going well. Hadn't considered the Herta move from Andretti and Power's perspective today, and you'll say more on Encore next Monday. And he said, but for now, you can say that you were too narrow-minded in your thinking 48 hours ago, and at the end of the day, the super license system is what it is, and you think this will be good for all those involved. And we got a question in the chat says, does Herta have enough super license points to be an F1? And our people in the chat have answered. Adam said not yet. And Ben, said he's a bit short, 35 now, will be 34 at the start of next year. You need 40 for a super license. And Herta should be able to get that, fairly easily next year. So many finishes on the top 10 of the F2 point standings, or he could basically, run multiple free practice 1 sessions throughout the year and end up getting that.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what happens with Will and Andretti. I think I agree with Adam. I think he will win a race, maybe more than one next year. And the way that motorsport writes its own stories, the cards will fall where he will be in a one-on-one match-off towards the end of a race against whoever they put in the 12 car. It's going to be on, isn't it? And he will absolutely be wanting to win that if it comes down to it somewhere in the early part of the season. I mean, he's been there for so long, as you say. I guess we've had this run, haven't we, recently, over the last 25, 30 years with Penske, where they've had someone there for a long time. You think of Unser Jr., DeFerrin, kind of maybe. Then there was, of course, Telio for a long cross with Will. We've had Joseph's been there a fair whack now as well. As was Simon before Simon left a few years ago, Simon Pagenaud. So they've had this thing where they keep their drivers. It's not a fast turnover of drivers at Penske, a bit similar to Chip Ganassi in some respects, although we had a little bit of a mix around after Dario retired to get Palou to the 10. But the two big powerhouse teams of IndyCar keep their guys for a long time. And Will was I think Will was probably trying to get his last contract.
Oh, we've had a bit of a freeze there for Matt, so we'll wait for a second. Internet's not been the best speed at the moment, sadly.
Correct. To be that
in the
last
UK.
thing.
Hello, Matt. We lost you for a second, but do go again.
That's fine. No, I was finished anyway. So carry on. We're already 40 minutes in and we're only at story 2. So let's carry on.
Lovely. Yeah, the Wi-Fi's been bad. Does Hertz have enough super license points for Formula One? Well, as Ben said, he's got 34 now. He will have 35. But this is how it works for Formula One. You need 40 for super license point. Yes. But you get 1 point for every 100 kilometers you drive in a Formula One car in a practice session. So Herta can do another 6 F1 practice sessions before the end of the season, and he should be good to go. But he can't do that because McLaren aren't going to fill him, and we've also got sprint races that are sort of blocking up the end of the season with another 2 still to go at Qatar and Sao Paulo. So it's unlikely that we're going to see him return this season. But with Cadillac next year, he can run those 6 easy because you already have to give up the car twice per year now per your drivers. That's 4 times Herta can get in a practice session next year for Cadillac. And if he's in F2, if he finishes anywhere inside the top 3, he automatically gets 40 super license points additional. If he finishes in 4th, it's 30 points. 5th is 20. 6th is 10. 7th is 8. 8th is 6. 9th is 4. And 10th is 3. That's if inside the top 10 in the World Championship points. So it is possible that Herta can complete super license points in total by midway through next year, which is a possible sign, as we were talking about whether or not Perez or Bottas might not do the full season. So it is still possible for Herta to be in next year. So that's how it all works. And as it was, Will Power didn't feel respected by Penske. That's why he thought a move to Andretti was the right move for him. I'd agree with that. And I think, Jackson, I know you want to come in on this bit. It's been, Power's been treated horribly by Penske all season long.
I'm going to agree with that. And to quote the great Rich Eisen, IndyCar, just like so much of sports, is an iceberg, and we're only seeing the tip. But you look at the vibe Will Power had, even when me and our friend Joe Samaniego were there talking to him at Portland, the vibe was low, and it kind of felt like he was taking one last look at the tenure he's had with the team. And it felt like we were starting to see a little bit below the surface, shall we say, of the level of respect Team Penske had. And now with what we're hearing from what Jenna Fryers broke, what the off-track guys have broke, it's for sure not a great look. So it's on for 2026 for Will Power. And we've got some great news, obviously, for where he's headed come 2026.
Yeah, because, of course, Colton Herta leaving the IndyCar Series for his test ride with Cadillac F1, it has opened the door for a seat at Andretti Global, as we've said here with Denver. Naturally, Andretti signed the best driver available, and it happened to be 2-time IndyCar champion and Indy 500 champion, Power. Now, he's going to take over the number 26 Honda. That's alongside Kyle Kirkwood and Marcus Ericsson to complete Andretti's 2026 driver lineup. Now, Power said he's looking forward to working with the very smart people at Andretti and believes that the change of scenery will be very energizing. The graphic courtesy there of Andretti Global. Now, Matt, starting with you on this one. Some people may be disappointed that Andretti didn't promote its Indy Next champion of Dennis Hauger to the number 26 Honda. But what can be an experienced championship-winning driver like Power bring to Andretti's IndyCar program?
Indy 500 winner, greatest qualifier in the history of the sport, and you want to pick a rookie when this guy's on the market. It's a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer, much like the Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, Colton Herta discussion that we've been having for the last half an hour. I mean, it seems simple to me. He wants to go again. He's not been given the chance to go again by his current employer. So he's gone to find employment somewhere else. I think it's a no-brain move. Andretti as a group, it's not been the greatest run, has it really? Since a couple of years ago when Colton Herta was in the running for the championship a few years ago and kind of it didn't happen for him for various reasons. But the group has not performed particularly brilliantly over the last couple of years. They've got a really experienced guy now that's come from Team Penske, with all the experience that he brings to steer the ship for the next couple of years and get that team moving in the right direction where it needs to be. I think it's a a very, very good move from all parties.
Yeah, Matt, totally agree with you. I think it was definitely a no-brainer, to put willpower, in this car because, like you say, we've already talked about his extremely impressive, Hall of Fame worthy resume here of everything that he's accomplished. Like, this is a mega free agent on the market, and I know Dennis Hauger, has a lot of potential, and he's someone who I think could become, one of the top drivers in IndyCar in due time. But I believe if you have a willpower available, despite being in his mid-40s. He hasn't shown much sign of falling off at this point of his career. So I think it's a really good investment by Andretti Global to bring him on board. And I think Andretti has to be a little bit disappointed, with the performances we've seen from this year. I know Kyle Kirkwood was able to visit victory lane, but outside of that, it's been quite some struggles across the board. Colton Herta, had a win this season in his final full-time season in IndyCar for now. Marcus Ericsson had a really, really horrible season, and which led to people to believe that they might buy out his contract. But Marcus, he can be under a lot of pressure next year in Andretti stable because next year be the last year of his contract. So they could easily move on from him. And I think Andretti, is going to look to try to continue to rebuild his IndyCar program to get closer, to the Ganassi's and Penske's and Aaron McLaren's of the world. Because it seemed like, outside of those wins from Kirkwood, that this organization has slipped off quite a bit. And you can have someone like Will Power, whose preparation, for these IndyCar races is, extremely impressive, and how he pays attention to detail. I think that what he can bring to the table is going to be extremely valuable for Andretti. The feedback that he's going to give, working alongside Kirkwood and Ericsson, that's going to make those guys better, make the entire team better. And I think if Andretti, wants to, improve his program to get back to, being at the front of the field on a week in, week out basis, every single race weekend in IndyCar, I think, a driver like Will Power can definitely help take you back to the top. And for anyone disappointed, about Dennis Hauger not getting this opportunity, I'll say stay tuned, because there might be, some really good news about Dennis Hauger coming here in the short term. I know Racer.com, has reported that Hauger will more than likely be loaned out to Del Quinn Racing for 2026, and with some support from Andretti. So that will be good for Dennis, because he would be at a lower pressure environment like Cohen, because the expectations of Cohen is that you want to overachieve, rather than being in an Andretti car and you falter, kind of like Roman Grosjean did, who has actually re-entered the IndyCar silly season chats as well. Like when Grosjean started off his IndyCar career with Cohen, he overachieved, and people were, raving about him. And then when he got to Andretti, in a car with more expectations, he underachieved, and that's why Grosjean, is sitting on the sidelines right now in IndyCar. But he's certainly, looking to get back in. And before turning to you, Jackson, Ben says that he's got to head back from the office to his apartment. Looking forward to catching up on the show later tonight.
That's okay, because I don't have a Baja Blast. It's going to be weird watching this guy in a car that isn't the Verizon 12, because there's been more years of my life with him in that car than without it. But I think what stood out to me this morning was Nate Ryan from IndyStar jokingly said that Will Power's already claimed pole position for the 2026 Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, which I think you joke about that, but you look at that as a genuine possibility. You look at what stands out to me most is the level of expertise Will Power has had on Saturday. Matt already told you guys how fast this guy is in qualifying, the fastest qualifier in IndyCar history. But you look at his expertise on street courses combined with the dampers that Andretti has been cooking, that has delivered Herta and Kirkwood to so many wins in the past 3-4 years. You combine that with the one guy in the past, since the pandemic, not named Alex Palou, to lead the championship fight and to win a title. I think it is absolutely a no-brainer.
Yes, a no-brainer indeed to come into it. I'm really happy he's staying on the calendar. I really am, because Matt?
Sorry, go finish your point, and then I've got a question without notice.
I was just saying, because after he won in Portland and how he looked at the last race of the season at Nashville, my heart was breaking for him. He deserves to be in the field. I thought he might go Chip Ganassi, personally. Andretti came out left field, but it makes logical sense. Kirkwood's been a race winner this year, and Marcus Ericsson's looking stronger and stronger at 500s as we go on again, and he's getting to grips nicely with the season. And I think it's a good team lineup. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's just read Denver's point quickly. Just imagine Will Power winning his first race of Andretti and flipping the bird at the Penske team as he rolled down pit lane. Well,
It's
he's
game
done it
on.
before Denver, New Hampshire, 2008. It'll be back. It'll be back. My question about notice was regarding Dennis Hauger, and I'm guessing Jackson's probably the best one to answer this question because he's more in the IndyCar paddock than three of us are. Is he allowed as champion to go back to Indy next if he doesn't find himself an IndyCar ride, much like the Formula 2 champion he's done?
Things I should know, but I don't, and I'm going to assume it copies the Formula 2 answer of no.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I can't remember it was time ago.
I think to answer your question, Kobe made a great point. I think we could either see him at Juncos or Dale Coyne next year. I think it's dumb for us to not imagine a place where he's, in some kind of seat for some capacity next year. But Kobe's going to walk you guys through kind of the open seats right now. We've got VK out of a seat. We've got now the first time since 2017 an open spot at Team Penske in like a mainline spot, not just an added slot. So that's going to be huge to see.
Yeah, for sure, Jackson. And honestly, I'm not sure what the rule is, with the Indy Next champion. But given the dominant season that Dennis Hauger had, why would he want to go back to Indy Next? There's nothing there's nothing for him to prove. Honestly, if he just went back to Indy Next, I think it would just be a wasted year, in a series, that he clearly dominated. He was, clearly the best driver this season, and it just really would not make any sense, in my opinion, for him to go back to that series. And like Colton Herta is doing, he's going to Europe. He's going to be able to come to grips with how the F1 world works, as we've been talking about. And Dennis Hauger, on the flip side, he did the exact same thing, just the other way around. Dennis has been on the record, he's already said this. I remember reading his interview with motorsport.com. He said that he had the backing to go into IndyCar full-time this year, but he decided against that because he figured that it would be smart to learn how IndyCar works, how the Firestone tires, perform compared to the Pirelli tires that he was using in Formula 3 and Formula 2, and, also learn the oval race. And so I think Dennis Hauger, played it off really smart, coming to Indy Next to learn how Indy works, instead of just going into IndyCar, without, knowing what's going on and all of that. And I guess, Colton Herta is going to do that exact same thing. And in regards to, seats available. No, I'm going to mention more about this later in the show. Rinus VeeKay, I know he initially announced that he, would like to stay with Dale Coyne Racing, and Dale Coyne, announced, major sponsorship, for the number 18 Honda next season in Nashville. And Coyne, he said he was hopeful that VeeKay was going to return, but, shortly after the finale, VeeKay's team, informed Dale Coyne, we really appreciate you for what you did to Rinus this year. When Rinus's IndyCar career, was up in the air, and there was a possibility, that could have been the end of Rinus VeeKay's IndyCar career after last year. But, Dale Coyne, gave him an opportunity to keep it going. And, they're forever grateful for that. But Rinus VeeKay, he's looking at another ride out there that could be a very attractive option. We have more than likely going to be a Penske affiliated ride, that could be vacated by the guy who is tipped to replace Will Power in that number 12 car. And also there could be some seats, potentially both seats open at Juncos Hollinger Race. And we all know about the sponsorship woes that, Connor Daly has had, throughout the season. Then, Stingray Robb, he hasn't really done anything with, with this team either. Yeah. And then also, I believe there's a potential an exit clause with Devlin DeFrancesco's contract, for lack of performance with Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. So that's another seat that could become available. And who knows what else is out there. But based on what we know right now, those are really the seats that are available for now. But who knows, because silly season can, throw some major surprises out there. We could see someone who we're not completely thinking of right now end up with an IndyCar seat, like a Teo Porcher, whose name, unfortunately, I haven't heard at all in any IndyCar silly season conversations.
I tell you who's going to Juncos, Franco Colapinto.
Yeah,
that's been rumored in Europe.
I haven't heard anything on our end about that. It's possible.
It's been rumored in Europe.
That's a whole nother can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, yeah, you're right. And Colapinto is how do I put this nicely? His clock has ticked out, and we're now in negative numbers. That's as bad as I think. Alpine don't want to change him because then they would have used all four of their drivers allotted in the season. They don't want to bring Jack Doohan back. And they don't want to change Colapinto because then they would be locked for the rest of the year. And they're getting
Colton
money
Herta
from
has the
Colapinto
opportunity
right
to
now.
do the funniest thing of all time right now.
He does, and sign for Alpine for a year. But he can't. He can do the practice. He will have to do the 6 sessions and probably don't get towards the end of the year. But yeah, he's not going to be there longer. Jack Doohan and then Franco in IndyCar. I'd have Jack there. But
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
He doesn't bring as
we were
much
doing
money
the
as Colton
stats.
does.
Yeah, we were doing the stats over the weekend. Doohan has had better qualifying, better race, better timings consistently than Colapinto the whole season. And that really saddens me because
Joseph Newgarden is right there, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello, Joseph
Colapinto. Yeah, Colapinto started his F1 career really strong, and then he faded fast. The shine went off quick, and he's not been that good this year at all. So moving on to our third story of the evening, and guess what? Surprise, surprise! It's about IndyCar. It's a heavy show tonight, isn't it? With the silly season going in. In 2026, the Entity IndyCar Series annual trip north of the border to Canada will take place in a different location. Now, with the FIFA World Cup taking place in North America next summer, it wasn't feasible for IndyCar to return to Toronto's exhibition place for 2026. Now, instead, the Ontario Honda Dealers Indy event will shift to the city of Markham, which is adjacent to Toronto's northeastern multiplicity boundary in York region as well. Now, the new Canadian Street Circuit will be held at Markham Centre in the downtown area, and it's home to many of Canada's corporate headquarters, including Honda Canada's headquarters. Now, on your screen here is what the Markham Street Circuit will look like. It's a 2.1 mile long circuit, 12 turns, top speed at 180 mile an hour as well. I was wondering if this is a one-off event in Markham for a return to downtown Toronto in 2027. This new deal with the city of Markham is a multi-year deal, so IndyCar won't be returning to the exhibition place even when the FIFA World Cup ends. Now, in the last few weeks, we've heard rumours that IndyCar's Canadian race might be taking place in an airport in Downsview or Buttonville, but to give off the old Cleveland Burke and Lakefront airport vibes, but they've ultimately decided on another street circuit in the middle of a growing Canadian city. Penske Entertainment CEO and President Mark Miles said Markham is a growing, a diverse and dynamic city and can't wait to begin a new chapter for IndyCar racing in Canada. And graphic courtesy of Penske Entertainment. Jackson's done with you on this one. Yet another new IndyCar race next season on the calendar. I'm thinking about 2 or 3 are on their way. How do you feel about Markham becoming the permanent replacement for Toronto on the IndyCar schedule? And what are your initial thoughts on this layout?
Good racing product, genuinely. I know some people were trying to make comparisons to Detroit, and no, because there are turns that aren't 90 degrees and kind of a Gran Turismo looking hairpin. We've got overtaking opportunities. I like the switchbacks. It's given you kind of some shades. Yes, thank you. I mean, you've got some really good straightaways for overtaking opportunities, a good variety of, low and high speed corners here. Some that turn 8 is reminding me a lot about that final kind of complex of corners at Exhibition Place. Just really, really slow speed, technical, got a tiptoe on throttle. It doesn't feel like it's as crazy as Nashville in trying to make this work. But I think on track, it's going to be a really, really good show. I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I know a damn thing about Markham. Other than the city looks really cool. I think it's a great opportunity to roll with the punches. I'll say this. Last time we got kicked out of a street circuit because of a major sporting event, we ended up with a pretty good on-track product in Nashville. I know that isn't directly apples to apples, but I am excited to see what Markham brings. I think getting to race at a new spot anywhere is always a cool opportunity. But we'll see if we get to turn Markham into an IndyCar town, like from the start. I'm all for that.
Yeah, and one thing that was also mentioned in the press release, James Hinchcliffe, Fox broadcaster, he was born in Markham. So, this is a true hometown race for Hinch that he's going to be calling from the booth next summer. And I believe August was the date for this race. I'm obviously, disappointed to see that Toronto, is gone from the schedule for the foreseeable future. Obviously, I know I really love Toronto. I've been there in person, been by exhibition plays, real wonderful city. But I believe IndyCar thinks, that they can, get some new opportunities here in Markham. I hope, like you said, Jackson, hopefully they can, turn it into, an IndyCar town, and people will come out and support the races. I think that would be, really good, to see the very first event in Markham, have a packed out grandstands. And in regards to the track layout, I think it looks pretty cool. We'll have to see, how it actually looks next summer once they get on track in August there. But all in all, don't really have too much complaints about the Markham Street Circuit. But the one thing, that disappointed me, besides not returning to Toronto, I really wanted to see an airport race. I really wanted to see, something like Cleveland from back in the day. But, just wasn't meant to be here. But we have Markham, and we'll see how this goes. But I do think that, that a nice touch of moving it to Markham, that, is home of Honda Canada. And I know, Jackson, you talked about, people comparing this to Detroit, but the way, I compare it to Detroit is a little bit different. The fact, that the Detroit street circuit, right in front of Chevrolet headquarters, and then, Chevrolet, they get their own IndyCar race in a way. I guess this is Honda's, where their Canadian headquarters is located here. So I guess both manufacturers, get, some satisfaction from this.
Yeah, that'd be good to even the score up on that. I promise that this show is not sponsored by James Hinchcliffe, but we have seemed to mention him about every 5 or 10 minutes tonight. And maybe he can be called the Mayor of Markham, because he's now getting his own Grand Prix rather than the Mayor of Hinchtown. The track looks good. I kind of like it. I like that swoop from 8 down through 9 and into that last little complex there at the end of the lap. If it's wet and there's a battle on for the lead in the final lap going through 9 through 12, that's going to be a show. Not so much fussed by the dual carriageway up to the hairpin at 5, but they have to extend the track to make it to not just 1.2 miles or whatever. So it's got to be done to make the length right. But looks cool. I've said this before on this show, and I'll say it again. Love Toronto, but when they changed the pit lane over to the other side, I think it ruined it. I don't know. Didn't like the pit lane on driver's left through that S bend at the end of the lap. It was always on the right hand side for me. Most of the point, because every time we had a race at Toronto and there was a race out the pit lane, the slower car would be on the inside, and most of the time that was Paul Tracy.
Yeah. Honestly,
but yeah, good.
Also,
we should have 2 races in Canada. Frankly, I'll state that claim again.
Would the other one be at Montreal?
We could be at Montreal. We could go back to Vancouver.
Vancouver would be lovely.
I love an East Coast and a West Coast IndyCar race in Canada for me.
Let's not give Formula One ideas. I love the circuit in Markham. Should be interesting. Yeah, it should be interesting as well. And Deborah says, why would IndyCar move from the Senate to Street Circuit to the middle of bleep in Markham, Ontario? It's like trading a penthouse for squatter's house. We've had to move for next year, and they've made it a multi-year deal. Otherwise, I doubt a city would never agree to a one-off, would they? They'd want multi-year to see if the revenue would work. Yeah, so it's not F1. They want a multi-year deal. You're coming here. We're not uprooting it our lives once. We will go year upon year. I'd see this being a 2 to 3 year deal. Then we'll see what happens.
Also, unlike Formula E, you need to do so much more to make this work. You look at the prep that goes into Long Beach for a single year. You're prepping by end of January, moving concrete barriers, welding over pothole covers or manhole covers, excuse me. It just requires a lot more infrastructure, and you don't want to go through all of that work just for a single event.
And Formula E tend to drag the ones around the calendar, don't they? Go on.
And for other places that have had street circuits in the not so distant past, new street circuits, shine a light on it. This is what we've got coming to our town. That's why, Denver, they don't want it to be your comment. And they want to go, look what we've got. We're the home of Honda Canada, and we've got this IndyCar race, etc., etc. We've thrown some money at it, and that's why.
Any of this come mainly with Chevrolet, do you reckon? They had theirs in Detroit, and now all of a sudden, bang,
it's great that they've each got one. And if we have,
let's just go straight to the source: Suzuka or Motegi. Let's do it.
Yeah, go back to Twin Ring.
Oh, do you know where I would love to race in Japan, though? Honestly, for this, Fuji would be the best for IndyCar. It would be so good. I keep saying Formula One, with the new rules coming in for them, Fuji should be on the table. I love Suzuka, but Fuji is such a better racetrack for actual passing. It is so good. It's one of my favorite circuits in the world, Fuji, as well. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Jack, who's unfortunately, though, a writer for Gyoza Sport for Japan, unfortunately confirmed to me that the oval at Motegi is so far beyond repair at this point. It's so worn down, and they don't want to dump the money into it for risking, earthquake damage or anything like that. You've still got a great inner road course, though. I think it's absolutely.
They used it once, didn't they? Last time they went, they used the road course because of the oval was damaged, and now they use it as the car park on the oval.
Right.
I don't know. The infield section's really good for motorcycle racing as well, actually. That's always a fun race. I always loved waking up for Japan, actually. It's one of my favourites on the schedule for MotoGP. Does it mean that the 2026 IndyCar schedule isn't far away from release? Bob Potcrass and many others have said it's about 2 weeks away from being fully delivered. And then we should have the full schedule coming out as well. I'm waiting for the day it drops in my inbox from Penske Entertainment. Really, and then we can all talk about it. Probably this time, 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the schedule on the Grid Tonight show.
I like that plan.
Right. I hope so too. You have to come back, Jackson, but we are going to let you go for tonight as well. We've been on air for 66 minutes as well. So what do you reckon of the day we've had so far?
Been good. Hopefully we get a break just a little bit so we can gather our thoughts. And big ups to Dale Coyne for planning on not being the last thing to break in the offseason and trying to get on his high horse and figure that out. But yeah, still a lot. I mean, the domino has been falling forever. We've been waiting for that first domino to push, and now we're still waiting for the rest of them to fall. And I think it could take all the way up until, week before St. Pete to find that out. Before I go, really quickly, Hutz, absolutely Isaac Hadjar, starting your week, starting your career in the wall at Albert Park, halfway to a podium, dude. Amazing. Not is Team Penske for not bringing power back. Can't believe I'm saying that. And me for not having a Baja Blast. Okay, love you guys.
Love you too, mate. See you later. Take care. So about an hour before tonight's show, though, is announced that the NASCAR Cup Series driver Austin Cindric will make his Repco Supercars Championship debut later this year in the season finale on the streets of Adelaide. Cindric will drive a wildcard entry, a third Ford Mustang from Tickford Racing, as the Team Penske Cup driver will get to be teammates with Cam Waters and Thomas Rundle. Now, he'll be no stranger to racing in Australia, though, because Cindric competed in the 2015 Bathurst 12-hour and a year later tested a Ford Falcon for DJR Team Penske. After watching Shane Van Gisbergen come to NASCAR and win his Cup Series debut on the streets of Chicago a couple of years ago, now Cindric will get to take a crack at the best drivers in supercars. Now, Cindric says he's been a fan of supercars since he was a kid and rates the teams and drivers in a high category. He added that he wanted to test himself against these drivers and soak in the atmosphere of competing in Adelaide. Now, Tickford Racing CEO Simon Brookhouse said, welcoming the NASCAR audience will continue to reinforce the direction of supercars growth and provide further benefits for all involved. While Managing Director Rod Nash added that securing a talent at Cindric was a long time in the making. He also acknowledged that he will be challenging on the streets on Adelaide. The photo taken by Sean Gardner from Getty Images as well. Coming into it. Now, tongue-tied I am now, Kobe, as well. Matt, starting with you. What types of challenges will Cindric be facing in his supercars debut, and how well do you think he can perform against the series regulars?
All of them. All of the challenges. Every single one. New car, new series, new rules, new track, new tyre. Driver's seat on the wrong side. Lots and lots of things. We've been talking about a supercars wildcard from the NASCAR sphere for 2 years. There was going to be Kyle Busch. It fell through. Then we talked about Kyle Larson going down and also competing in the sprint cars event, which runs alongside the Adelaide, well, I was going to say the Adelaide 500, but the BP Adelaide finale. That's now fallen through. So we've now got Austin Cindric. So that's a Ford guy rather than a Chevrolet guy. But great to have this done, dusted. It's been in the realms of being a possibility for a couple of months. Finally, it's out today. The only thing I wish for Austin is that it is the final round of the series. There are 3 races across the weekend. Just don't get in the way of the title fight. Please don't make that a thing. Hopefully I've not manifested that now to happen on the Sunday afternoon when it's, I don't know, Brown versus Feeney and they trip over a lapping Austin Cindric at the back of the field. But as we know, he's got plenty of road course experience. Oh, this is a street track, but he's got plenty of turning left and turning right experience. He was, one of the best in Xfinity on the road courses when he was down there. Hasn't quite gone his way in the Cup Series over the last couple of years since he stepped up on the road courses, but he's getting there. Got a great chance to win at Gateway again this weekend, as he did, or got close to last year. So, yeah, excited for this. Think it's going to be cool. Always nice to have extra cars on any grid, and if you're bringing a bit of a name down from the NASCAR World of Supercars, granted, it's probably not your A+ name, but still, it's going to be a cool story and may open up other things in the future for other guys to try and have a crack at the Supercars Championship.
Yeah, Matt, it's really nice to see someone go the other way for once, right? We've seen all these supercars drivers coming in NASCAR, from Shane Van Gisbergen to Will Brown, Cam Waters, been nice.
Jack Perkins.
Yeah, Jack Perkins. Almost forgot about it. He had a great run going at Portland, but unfortunately, end up, driving himself off course there and getting stuck at the end. Jack Perkins ran extremely well. Ray's been really nice to see those supercars guys come over here. Brock Feeney has also said that he's wanted to have a crack at NASCAR as well, but he hasn't been able to, get a deal across the finish line yet. So hopefully we'll see Brock within the next couple of years or so in NASCAR. But finally, we now have a NASCAR Cup Series driver going down under to race in Australia. I think it's awesome that Cindric's going to be doing this, considering the fact that he has raced in Australia before, in that first 12 hour he was with Erebus Motorsport, which is, obviously a current supercars team. And he's also tested at supercars before, on the opposite side. So that's not completely foreign to him. And I think, given his background in road course racing, I think that will make it a little bit easier for him. But I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to be as easy as SVG's Cup Series debut. I don't see Austin going out there winning on debut. If he did that, that would be amazing. But I don't see that possible. I think that he can, focus on, just going out there being as competitive as he can, and just having a great time, because this is a rare opportunity you have, in a busy 38-week NASCAR schedule where you can find time during the offseason to go down under to Australia and race in the Repco Supercars Championship. Sure, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Austin, at the end of November after the Thanksgiving holiday, and see how he does. Really looking forward to seeing, him work alongside Cam Waters and Thomas Randa at that Tickfoot Racing team. And hopefully they give him a competitive car where he can show what he's capable of in this series. I think it's going to be really exciting. Kind of like when we saw Shane Van Gisbergen come over here, and dominate on the Chicago street course. Really looking forward to seeing how good Austin Cindric can be in an Australian supercar, competing against the Brock Feeneys, the Will Browns, the Cam Waters of the world, the Matt Paynes, all of the Kai Allens, all of these great, drivers that they have in supercars.
It's going to be a fantastic ending, isn't it?
One thing you can say is Tickford's social media, they are pretty much the gurus in Australia about doing the funny videos and stuff. And we know how sort of plain and flat Austin Cindric is. I think that's going to make for some good social media content. Adam can't wait for this Repco Supercars finale at the end of the year. By the way, if I'm Fox Sports, get the rights to air this in the US so that Austin Cindric can be seen. Championship finale, even if they just get the last race on the Sunday, that would be a thing. But of course, it will be in the middle of the night for you guys.
There's one thing on this, Matt. I'm not sure if you heard of MAV TV. It used to be in the United States, but MAV TV is no longer a thing because they were bought out by actually Racer.com. So Racer.com, where we typically, talk about Marshall Pruitt and all his great stories that we often talk about on our programs. They have a TV channel now called Racer Network, and Racer Network has the TV rights here in the United States to the Repco Supercars Championship. So it will be shown live on Racer TV. So yeah, it would be nice if it was on a bigger station like Fox Sports, but Racer TV is what we're stuck with. That's one of the options. And also we have SuperView as well. So there'll be some great viewing options for NASCAR fans who want to watch Austin Cindric's progress.
I'm sure there's other things that you can watch on around the world as well, namely the cough. Austin Cindric will get a lot of respect from the Chevrolet and Ford Supercars fans for getting in a supercar and having a crack at Adelaide Street Course. Absolutely, he will. Everyone wants to do Adelaide. Do you have the itch to broadcast the Adelaide 500? Yes, we
talked
really
about
do.
doing back, didn't we? That start time's been announced. 2:45 a.m. UK time. Yeah.
When? Bathurst 12-hour 2026.
No.
Five.
1,000.
1,000.
Second weekend of October, 2:45 a.m. our time. Anyway.
Second weekend. Oh, okay. Oh, it might be doable. I'll be there. I'll be here. Okay, we'll have a look at that. But yeah, I would love to call that as well. That'd be nice if me and Ben could do it as well, and Kobe, get you in. I know you like to do a couple of bits of supercars. And Matt, see if you're awake. I'll have to have a think about that. But right now, come on, wake up and do it. Maybe on Speed Network, the Bathurst 1000 might join Dale Waltrip, need to be Calvin Fish, did an incredible job. A member might join Dale Waltrip having a go because there was a KFC right outside and they were good and they had a McDonald's instead. So that always made me laugh on their broadcast. 2011, I think they went over and did it. But right now, though, somewhere around there. Let's head over to you, Matt, with the latest from our Grid EPI update.
It is latest, and it is a double update this week from the Grid Endurance Performance Index for 2025. We did a 2-week behind delay last week, so now we're in catch-up mode, and we've got plenty to tell you about from the last 2 weekends of sports car and endurance racing from around the world. And we start with last weekend in Virginia, because at VIR, the IMSA Championship was in action, and it was a win for Corvette in the GTD Pro category. This was an all GTD race. Alexander Sims and Antonio Garcia getting the win in GTD Pro, and in GTD, it was a win for Winwood Racing with Russell Ward and Phil Ellis getting the win for the number 57 Mercedes. We talked about Suzuka a little while ago. They were hosting Super GT last weekend, and it was a win for Nissan. Katsumasa Chiyo and Mitsunori Takaboshi, the winners for the Motel number 23 in GT500. And in GT300, Rikoto Kobayashi and Zach O'Sullivan were the winners for the Car Guy Ferrari team. In Belgium last weekend at Spa, the European Le Mans Series kicked back into life after its summer break, and it was a win for the Mark BDS team, the number 48. Ollie Gray, more on him later, Esteban Masson and Charles Malaysia, the winners in LMP2. The LMP2 Pro-Am race was won by Algarve Pro Racing, Ollie Caldwell, Alex Quinn, and Kriton Lundunis, the winners for the APR squad. In LMP3, that was a win for Virage Racing, Julian Gerby, Rick Cohen, and Daniel Nogales with the win there in the yellow and black number 8. And in GT, Erwin Bastar, Vala Haskell, and Clement Mathieu were the winners for the Spirit of Le Mans Aston Martin squad. DTM was in action at the Saxon Ring, and it was a double for the Manfai Porsche driver Arjen Guven. He won on Sunday in dominating fashion. He was third on the beginning of the last lap on Saturday, but Jordan Pepper and Jack Aitken ran into each other, and Arjen came through to sweep the weekend. And also last weekend, the final one for us to catch up on was at Brands Hatch, where Charles Dawson and Cian Jewis won again to put one hand on the British GT trophy for 2Cs Motorsport. So that gets you caught up from last week. This weekend, we had 3 more scoring races, and we start at Okayama, former Formula One host circuit, at the AIDA circuit for GT World Challenge Asia. Luo Kallio and Deng Yi, the winners on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it was a win for Porsche, Wei Lu and Bastien Bus getting the victory on the Sunday race there at AIDA. And a bit more closer to home for me and Josh at the Nürburgring, not that close, but you know what I mean, was the latest round of the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup. Rover Racing, the winners in the pro category, Jesse Krohn, Augusto Farfus and Raffaele Marciello coming through to take the victory in Pro. The Gold Cup was won by Jens Klingman, Faisal Al-Zubair, and Bedford's Ben Tuck, hometown boy for me. Congratulations to that team. Silver Cup was won by Aurelien Panis, Cesar Gazzo, and Loris Cabiro. And in bronze, James Baldwin, Tom Fleming, and Guilherme Oliveira were the winners. So with a double update on the points, here is what the grid EPI looks like after 23 weeks of the season. We've now gone past 100 races scored, and we have another brand new leader at the top, and it is the man I mentioned earlier, Ollie Gray, former Formula 3 racer who's turned his hand to sports car racing over the last couple of years, and he's going great guns. He is now the Grid Endurance Performance Index leader and has been now for 2 weeks because he raced this weekend. His teammate Esteban Masson, as part of that trio, goes in second position. Jota Subo, who was our leader after last week, slips to fifth. Lawrence Vanford still hanging on in there, and Antonio Giovinazzi. They've all been leaders of the points this season, and also at the very front end of the year, Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy were points leaders. They're still hanging in there in the top 10. It's the second busiest weekend of Grid EPI action of the year this weekend. That's then followed by the busiest 17 races in this Grid EPI over the next couple of weeks, 7 of them this week, headlined by the World Endurance Championship back after their summer break, and they are in Austin, Texas at Circuit of the Americas for Lone Star Le Mans. So that will certainly chop and change the points at the top end with Antonio Giovinazzi and Lawrence Vanford and Esteban Masson all in that race. A couple of different places for GT World Challenge this weekend. In Australia, that championship is at the Bend for 2 races, and Barber Motorsports Park will host the US Championship, and the ADAC GT Masters is at the Salzburg Ring in Austria this weekend. That's how the top 50 stands through week 23. We have less than 50 races to go now in the Grid EPI for 2025, and we are getting closer to crowning the champion. Ollie Gray tops it. Can he hold on for the rest of the year? Been a long show. Thank you for sticking with us through all that IndyCar news. Here is Kobe with some IndyCar news and other things that have happened in the week that was in motorsport.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. We talked about him at the top of the show, Colton Herta. Let's talk a little bit about his dad, because he has some things going on. After spending the last few years running Hyundais in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, Brian Herta Autosport will move up to the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in 2026. BHA will enter the LMP2 class and operate the program out of his recently acquired state-of-the-art facility in Brownsburg, Indiana, which will give the team the necessary infrastructure to succeed. Team owner Brian Herta said the new LMP2 program is vital for building that foundation for the future and gives them the opportunity to develop the personnel and systems in a way that prepares them to compete at IMSA's highest level. For BHA, getting experience in prototype racing next year and given their strong relationship and success with Hyundai and Michelin Pilot Challenge, it makes one wonder if they're preparing to run a potential Genesis IMSA GTP program in 2027 at the earliest. Next year, Hyundai's brand is set to enter the FIA World Endurance Championships Hypercar class with Genesis Magma Racing. Graphic courtesy of Brian Herta Autosport. The NASCAR Hall of Fame announced that longtime motorsports journalist Deb Williams was named as the recipient of the 2026 Squire Hall Award for NASCAR Media Excellence. Williams has been around as a reporter for over 4 decades and became one of the first women to cover NASCAR. Her career began in the late 1970s at United Press International and spent nearly 2 decades at NASCAR Winston Cup scene and contributed to other outlets over the years. Now Williams remains a part of the NASCAR media world as a motorsports correspondent for the outlet Auto Week. NASCAR chairman and CEO Jim France said Williams has been a trusted, respected, and pioneering voice in NASCAR for decades and praised her for breaking barriers, becoming one of the first women on the NASCAR beat while earning the respect of competitors, industry leaders, and fellow journalists. Graphic courtesy of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Formula E star Nick Cassidy will return to the FIA World Endurance Championship for the first time since 2022. Cassidy is set to compete in the hypercar class with Peugeot after previously competing in the LMGT EM and of course, a Ferrari 3 years ago. He'll be on site with Peugeot this weekend at Lone Star Le Mans at Circuit of the Americas and get to test a prototype alongside the team's test and development driver, Théo Pourchaire, 2 days after the race. The former Jaguar TCS racing driver will balance a dual program of WEC and Formula E once his new home in the electric racing series is confirmed. Cassidy said racing for an iconic brand in endurance racing is a dream opportunity and he's looking forward to taking on the challenge ahead. Graphic courtesy of Peugeot. Toyota Australia officially unveiled the GR Supra, set to debut in the Repco Supercars Championship next year. As previously announced, Walkinshaw Andretti United will be the homologation team, with drivers Chaz Mostert and Ryan Wood leading the effort. Then Brad Jones Racing will fill 4 GR Supers, with a total of 6 Toyotas set to race in supercars during the 2026 season. Toyota plans to undergo an extensive testing program at racetracks all over Australia for the next several months, including trips to the wind tunnel and participate in AVL dyno assessments as parity is finalized ahead of the 2026 season. Sean Hanley, Toyota Australia's Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Franchise Operations, said unveiling the car, was a proud moment for Toyota, demonstrating their growing involvement in Australian motorsports and growing the Toyota Gazoo Racing brand around the world. Graphic courtesy of Walkinshaw Andretti United. And speaking of Toyota Gazoo Racing, its FI World Endurance Championship Hypercar team will see a change to the driver lineup this weekend at the Circuit of the Americas. After suffering an injury in a training accident last week, Mike Conway has been ruled out for Lone Star Le Mans. Toyota will call up an old friend to replace the injured Conway, as Jose Maria Lopez will drive alongside Kamui Kobayashi and Nick DeFries in the number 7 Toyota at COTA, with Lopez vacating his LMGT3 seat in the number 87 Akota's ASP Team Lexus. IMSA driver Jack Hawksworth will be the substitute driver. Lopez said he feels sad for Conway, who he considers a great friend, and he's looking forward to working with his old team again and believes they'll be like old times very quickly. Photo courtesy of Toyota Gazoo Racing. And we talked a little bit about him during our IndyCar segments. And after initially expressing his desire to continue working with the team, Rinus VeeKay has informed Delcoin Racing that he won't drive for them during the 2026 NTT IndyCar Series season. In a social media post, VeeKay thanked the team for allowing him to reestablish himself and called this the most enjoyable year of his IndyCar career. The team responded by thanking him for giving his best day in and day out and wished him well in his future endeavors. Last silly season, VeeKay lost his seat at Ed Carpenter Racing very late in the game, and Coyne offered him a lifeline to keep his IndyCar career afloat, officially signing him during the week of the 2025 season opener on the streets of St. Pete. So talk about last minute, right? According to Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, his sources say VeeKay could be on his way to AJ Foyt Racing to replace Team Penske bound David Malukas and the number 4 Chevrolet. Photo taken by James Black from Penske Entertainment. And that's all the stories I have for you guys this week. And now let's turn on to Matt for everyone's favorite game, pick a winner, and what will probably be another predictable segment.
And just to back on something I said at the end of your segment last week, we actually got through your segment, Kobe, without having to detail someone that's passed away, which is lovely because we've found plenty of them over the last few weeks. Anyway, hashtag pick a winner, the Grid Network prediction game. There is the championship standings, and you will see that we have some red numbers at the bottom of the list. Those people in red, and if you have not scored yet and you would like to take part, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to win the championship. There's only 52 points left going into this weekend. So if you are in green on the totem, you are still within a chance, and it is down to 3 points now at the top there between Kobe and Matt B. I'm lagging behind in third. Myself and Tanner battling it out for the last spot on the podium. Josh is in 9th position now on 24. A little bit behind Joe, so you've got some work to do, Josh, to catch up with Joe. And I'm guessing, as Kobe mentioned, we are all about to pick the same person for the MotoGP sprint race, which MotoGP is back this weekend at Barcelona, Circuit de Catalunya. It's in what would be the normal Aragon spot on the calendar. Barcelona normally in the spring. It's now moved to the autumn, and we are there this weekend for the penultimate European race of MotoGP. And there will only be one winner, and he rides number 93. That's my pick. Of course, it is Marc Marquez.
Yep. Pretty simple, right? Marc Marquez, the king of the sprints, the king of MotoGP this year. Yep. Can't go wrong with Marc Marquez. That will be my pick, and probably my pick every single race for the rest of the season. As Joe says, that Marc Marquez for him and Kiska, our Grid Network office dog. You make it unanimous again, Josh?
Yeah. As much as I'd say, it would be Jorge Martin or Marco Bezzecchi because it's an Aprilia type circuit. You can't really throw them out. Aprilia have won the last 2 seasons here in both events, so that is strong. But yeah, it's going to be Marc Marquez. Let's have some safe bets. But my expertise will tell you, watch out for Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin. They will be fast here.
Yeah, they will. Might be a good place to pick if you want to go different from Marquez for the Grand Prix on Sunday. The full pick a winner list for the weekend is 2 points for MotoGP with the sprint and the Grand Prix over the weekend at Barcelona. NASCAR's playoff race number 2 at Gateway Worldwide Technology Raceway on Sunday, and Formula 1 at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. Get your picks in for those races using hashtag pick a winner across all of the Grid Network social channels. We are everywhere, as you will know by now. And of course, as I said, if you've got green numbers, then you need to keep yourself scoring and make yourself available to be in with a chance of winning the competition this year with the 52 races that are pointable between now and the end of the season, which culminates at Abu Dhabi with the Formula One decider. Let's hope it goes to a decider. Although, Josh, as we get to hots and nots, I feel like it might not after the Zandvoort race at the weekend. Love a segue.
Very nicely done. Yeah, what the hell was that race?
Weird.
Live timings went down in the commentary. Lando was out. Leclerc's out. Hamilton's out. What happened? So Piastri wins for a 7th time and now has a 34 point gap in the standings. When did that happen? One mistake. Lando's got a season and a half. The next 9 races are going to be Lando fighting back so hard. I am looking forward to it so much. But this is Oscars, isn't it? Hands down.
Yeah. I feel like he's not had any, well, of course, mechanical problems could still happen to him, but he hasn't had the pitfalls that Lando's had. Of course, he had the non-score in Canada as well. Kind of battled his way back from that. It was just about sort of back level with him, and now he's fallen back down the snake on the F1 Championship board again this weekend. I think it was, who did I see? Jonathan Noble from the race saying felt a bit like Hamilton Malaysia 2016 with his engine blow up at the end of the season, which curtailed that one for Lewis. But yeah, it was a strange race, wasn't it? Like all round, we had both the Ferraris crashing in the same corner, although in two very different incidents. The typical F1, will it rain or will it not? Which it didn't, kind of, really, properly. And all other Fernando Alonso trying to call his own strategy, which didn't work. And then, as Jackson mentioned, well, indeed so. And then, as Jackson mentioned earlier, the hottest of hot, Isaac Hadjar on the podium.
Yeah, I think that's my hot, like the golden hot. Isaac getting it was so well deserved, and he was in fourth for the majority of the race, and he was attacking every second the back of Max. So it was very logical. I just hope he doesn't get demoted to Red Bull.
Yeah, he's doing the wrong thing about doing that, isn't he? By having these great performances. I don't know. I think there wasn't much, was there, over the weekend that I could think of? No, I've not caught up with Darlington yet. Should have done it yesterday, but I haven't.
I'll give you a couple for you. Nina Gaidman winning her home event.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and Leah Block on the podium.
Yes, yeah. And you were right in touring cars. Finally, first time this year, Sutton and Ingram wheel-to-wheel door banging.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I was in the commentary box. Yeah, they were. Apparently, I was speaking after the session. Every time they went past the commentary boxes, the whole of the pit lane were cheering them on outside as well. So it was fantastic. I wish I was there. But we've got 2 races left now, and it's anybody's game. It's Ingram or Sutton, and I can't wait. Yeah,
it's coming down to those 2, which we kind of thought it would be at the beginning of the season. Oh my goodness, it's raining at one corner all of a sudden in race 2 was quite exciting as well, where everybody went off at McLean because suddenly it was wet.
I wasn't the commentary for that one. JT was, because I was doing F1, and I looked over to the second monitor we've got in there, and all of a sudden everyone flew off the track. I was like, what on earth is happening over there?
What's going on? Yeah.
It was like it was so bizarre. But touring cars works on the Donington Grand Prix loop better than the short track for where they go through Roberts instead of Fogarty. It just it gives us another attack. Every lap there was something going on that hairpin. It's such a good track, Donington.
Yeah, I don't know why it took them so long. Frankly, we've been on that national circuit for ever, it seems.
20 odd years now.
Yeah, World Touring Cars in their one and only run at Donington used the long track, because I was there in 11, 12. Does work better. Not of the weekend, and I can't remember who it was that posted this on social media on Monday. Happy birthday to Carlos Sainz, although he is under investigation for having too many candles on his cake. He got a penalty for being crashed into. Please, someone explain to me why Carlos Sainz, who was on the outside of an understeering Liam Lawson, got 10 seconds. And then it wasn't rescinded afterwards, after further review. I don't understand.
It's so obvious what the FIA are nowadays, isn't it? So obvious. Where is this AI computer that's supposed to overrule
the one in Switzerland?
That's got the best
rate control, or whatever that was called. Yeah.
Never even happened. I'm getting to the point where the FIA is a running joke because it hasn't got enough staff to actually know what they're doing.
We've been saying that on this show all year.
Yeah. And we're getting close to the elections. It is September. We've got the elections in December. So here we go. I've got a feeling that Tim's going to do it, I really do. Because Mohammed's gone quiet now. Tim's
I can't remember. There was some MBS quotes about rallying earlier in the week that were, you read them and went, oh, really? Because the promoter of WRC is about to change. And I think he was trying to, yet again. MBS, you wouldn't believe it, an MBS way of trying to sway voting. Yeah, I know. It doesn't happen. But there was some strange comments from him about WRC earlier on in the week. Which
just remember that he doesn't actually own these series. He just governs them. That's the one thing. He tried to do it with Formula 1.
The next time an FIA championship decides to change its logo, he'll probably say it's not right and they'll get him to change it back. Remind us of anybody. Hello, Mr. President.
You can't call it Rally di Monaco. It must be Rally di Monte Carlo, sponsored by FIA.
That's right.
Yeah. The Gulf of Monaco, whatever. Yeah. Is he alive, by the way? Is Trump alive? I missed the press conferences. He apparently spoke for 2 hours. So I'm surprised his battery doesn't wane down or something. But is he alive? Yeah, that's how it goes. Good,
powering down.
Well, yeah.
Much like us. It's been a long show.
It has been a long show. Yeah, I was just popping my glasses on to read us through the end of the show tonight as well. Taking a look at our upcoming schedule, you can stay tuned for the Grid Live pre-race show. That's previewing NASCAR at Gateway and F1 at Monza. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. And Monday, Grid Encore at 7 p.m. Eastern is recapping the Xfinity Series regular season finale at Gateway and Formula 2 and Formula 3 at Monza. Reminder, it is the final of Formula 3, but the championship has been decided in the drivers, the teams, and second and third is still yet to play for. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach 1,700 subscribers. Now we're inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications. You'll always know when we go on the air, and follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks, help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our teams to track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of this is in the media and video description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and it will thank you on the air. Jump scare coming through there from Mike Conway. Having spoken to Mike Conway as well after Silverstone 1 year, let me tell you something. He does have to look like that when you surprise him coming through.
That's the second time he's been injured. He's injured himself in a training accident, so I think Mike Conway should stop training.
Stop training. For Kobe Lambert, Matt White from Grid Jones Performance Index, and Jackson Lambros from Chipotle, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.